Hello everybody, Chris here, and in this video I want to show you guys how we can do a before-after video clip comparison inside of DaVinci Resolve. So in order to do this, we're going to need to have two copies of the same clip at the same points in the timeline. So the easiest way to do that is to take the clip you want to do the comparison of, copy an unedited version of it by hitting Control-C, and then hitting Control-V somewhere else in the timeline. So I went over here where there's no video clips, and just Control-V to paste it in. And now I can move it above the video track 1 at the same points in the timeline. And now we have two identical clips layered on top of each other. And now we can take one of those two clips and edit it. So a really quick way of doing that would be to apply a lookup table. So we can go over to the color page as the fifth button on the bottom. So we hit color. And then when we're over on this page, lookup tables are over on the top left. So a lookup table will take the base color of your video clip and transform it into a different look. So you can get many different lookup tables from the internet, or you can use some of the ones out of the default. So you could look into Blackmagic Design or Film Looks to get some examples. If you want to see how it would affect your video clip, you can hover over any of these LUTs, and it will apply a preview in the preview window for that clip. So by doing that, you can see how it dramatically changes the colors. So let's go ahead and take a look into Film Looks as a category. So if you find one that you like, just double click it, and it will be applied to the video clip. And you can confirm that over in the node section by looking at the node for your clip. And you should see a grid that looks a little bit like a waffle over there. That indicates that there's LUT on the video clip. So now we can go back to the Edit tab. And we're going to need to do a little bit of cropping and keyframing in order to selectively show the original or the new clip to our viewers at different points in the timeline. So what you should do first is find the point in the timeline using the cursor where you want to start cropping, basically where you want the animation to start of that before-after comparison. And then if you want to show the original initially and then have it kind of swipe from left to right, then you should pump crop right all the way to the maximum, in this case 1920 pixels, so that when we decrease it, it'll start showing the top portion as we uncrop that part of the video out. Or you can do the reverse with crop left. So if you put that at maximum, you can have it go from right to left by decreasing the crop from the maximum back down to 0. But I think it's more typical to reveal from left to right, so I'm going to put crop right at the maximum, and then I am going to keyframe that for the video track 2. So now we can basically figure out how long we want that transition to be. We could say something around 2 seconds should be fine. So right now the keyframe is at 1 second, 26 frames. So if we go to about 4 seconds, that should be the right point in order to have a 2-second duration. More specifically, it should be 3 seconds and 26 frames. We'll create a keyframe there just by decreasing the crop right to 0, and you'll notice that the keyframe diamond is automatically triggered there. So now if we play back the timeline, we should get our before-after transition. So if we hit play, we get that crop transition. And what you should notice is that the video clips from the top and the bottom are perfectly synced up, so it looks proper. And that's why it's important that you use the same base video clip with the exact same points in the timeline. So it essentially is the same clip, just with some modifications added. So we can go a couple steps beyond this. For instance, if you want it to be a side-by-side comparison with no movement, then we simply need to crop it halfway. So if we go to another point in the timeline to do a new crop, I will just check the keyframe diamond, so that'll be the starting point. We can go about a second or two later, and we will crop halfway. So if you want the crop to be precisely halfway, just take the width of your timeline resolution and divide that by 2. So in my case, that's 1920 pixels width. So you divide that by 2, you get 960. So if I put 960 in here, it's going to be perfectly halfway. So now if we play it back, the cropping will go halfway, and then for the rest of the video, you'll just have a perfect side-by-side comparison. Now you might not like it having a perfectly hard edge here, so there would be a couple fixes for that. One is to use the softness setting. So we can add some softness to take that hard edge line and actually have it fade in between the two videos, kind of like a gradient. Of course, the softness goes in the direction where the crop is coming from, so you may want to adjust the pixels a little bit. So if you have a softness of 8 pixels, then you might increase the crop right to 964, I believe, to move it a little bit over to the left, if it's noticeable enough to bother you. So by doing that, the transition is now a lot smoother. And so we could do one more thing, which is to add a separator on that border between the two clips as it crops. So to do that, you can go ahead and Photoshop yourself a nice bordering line, or you can just do something simple like a literal black line. So I happen to have a PNG of a black line in my media pool, so we can go ahead and use that as the border between the two clips. So I'll make this image clip match the duration of the bottom two clips, and now we need to make sure that the position of this line follows the bottom clips. If this line itself is too thick for you, you could crop it out a bit. So I can take this crop and adjust it until it cuts off part of the line so that it is a little bit thinner here. So with a thinner line, that'll look a little bit sleeker. So because our transition is going to slide from left to right, we need the separator line to initially be off the side to the left so that it can follow that sliding. So I'm going to position it over here to the left here. Okay, we also have a minor issue with the cropping from the first one. So you can see here the softness is still showing there on the initial part of the video clip. So one way to fix that would be that you can keyframe it so that when it's over here, it's not actually showing the softness, and then only have the softness be for this part. But you could also remove it completely since we're using a separator now. So rather than keyframing the softness, I'm just going to remove it completely. So let's set that to 0. And now we need to go to the keyframes where the movement of the cropping starts. So we can do that really easily by selecting the cropped clip and hitting next on the keyframes. So this will move us to the first keyframe where the movement starts. So at that keyframe, we need to select the top clip for the separator, and we need to hit the keyframing diamond for the position. Next, click on the cropped clip again and hit next on the keyframes, so that we can find where that cropping is complete. Go back to the top separator clip and adjust the position so that the separator line is right outside of the bounds. So let's move it right up there, and that should be just about perfect. Note that by moving the position, because one keyframe is already set, a new keyframe will be created automatically. So now if we go back and play this in the timeline, the separator line should perfectly follow the cropping. So as the crop reveals from left to right, so does the line. And we can finish that for the other two keyframes as well by setting the positions. So I'm going to create a keyframe there for the separator for the before movement position, and then hit right to get to the final keyframe where it's halfway, and then take the position and move it right on top of that separator line. And in a nutshell, that is how you would do a before-after video clip comparison inside of DaVinci Resolve 16. Of course, if you want, you can use a fancier separator line, but that is the general idea of how you can do it. So I've been Chris, thanks for watching, and I will see you guys in my future video content.